Today on the show,
we slowly started sending departments over there as we could find people willing to do it.
How online freelancers are changing the investment game. We're excited to welcome Drew Saget to join us this afternoon. Drew is a property investor and manager in the Detroit area, and he's also an innovative user of online freelancers, specifically out of the Philippines, to augment his business. We talked with him about his company, how he structures it, and how he is leveraging the power of the internet to benefit his business. I'd love to hear more about your business and especially how you've been integrating technology and freelancers into that business. But why don't we just start at the beginning? Tell me about your journey. How did you get into the real estate business?
I actually started out in the mortgage business. And as I was doing mortgages, I was running into a lot of clients that were buying investment properties and seeing their numbers and started to calculate those things and talking to them. And, they were sharing what they were doing with me. And so I said, well, I need to start doing this because sounds like a great idea. So I started buying my own rentals, and then I got even connected with even more people buying investment properties and became one of the area's better loan officers at doing that. And then one of my clients that had 11 properties got transferred out of state for work. And he asked me for assistance. He said, hey, I'll still run everything, but I may need maintenance help here and there or something like that. I was like, hey, no problem. I've got some guys that are doing my stuff. And then another guy I knew got transferred. He had 9 properties. And so, now I'm looking at 20 properties. I'm kind of helping out. And of course, the little bit of help turned into a lot of help because they were out of state. And so I started saying, well, hey, I got to start doing this, as a business model. And so I set up a property management company. And that started as soon as people found out I had that. Then I started getting, this company asking me to help, these people asking me to help. And it just kind of took a life on its own. And, I stayed in the mortgage business, and I started hiring a couple people locally to do it for me, to do the management. And we kept growing. And then eventually I just, when the mortgage market blew up, I decided to exit out of that and get into this full time. And I've been doing it ever since.
It's an interesting journey that you've taken because the property management side of the business, for many is one of the more difficult aspects of it, especially keep track of that many properties, keeping them up to spec. Can you talk a little bit about that? What was so attractive about being in this end of the business?
Well, again, I was already doing it for my own properties. So, and because I had a full-time job, I was looking for ways to be efficient in doing this. I was doing it in Excel spreadsheets for a little bit, and then I started doing it in QuickBooks. But then QuickBooks was limited because, you could do a lot of transactions and automate stuff like that, rent collections and ledgers in QuickBooks, but it wasn't doing enough. And so then as we continued to grow, I started looking into software. And, I knew enough about software that, I wanted to eventually have something that was going to be cloud-based so I could access it anywhere, because I was also traveling a little bit. And I didn't want to be just tied to a computer and have to lug that around. So, you've got to be organized to do this. And I was kind of forced to do it right from the get-go because I had a full-time job. And
yeah, talk to me a little bit more about that, about what you needed specifically for technology to do in order to keep track of something. What do you have? Almost like 400 plus properties, right?
Yes. I'm really about automating everything. And at the time, when you're, working in the mortgage business and you're taking calls all the time, how do you separate, business, tenants calling you and stuff like that. So, I had a pager originally back in the day, and set for just, tenant related stuff and even some of the owners that we were doing business with. And then I transitioned that to, a cell phone. And so I had 2 cell phones for a while. And then as soon as Google Voice came out and I heard about that, I went and got a Google Voice number, and I was able to ditch the second cell phone number because now, it all came to one cell phone, but I knew it was either, the way you can program Google Voice is you can tell it's coming in for that business. And so that's what I did. So I knew what the calls were coming in, how to answer them and stuff like that. And then just kept leveraging technology every way we could. again, with the online software, we were able to push to automate. Okay, automatically send emails to tenants regarding rents due, automatically doing invoicing. As soon as we could start taking automated payments, we started taking automated payments because it makes everything faster and more efficient. You don't have to touch things. Also, the thing that we did right from the get-go was, everything was scanned. We were paperless because, again, for traveling, I wanted to be able to access everything as easy as possible. So, we've been using Dropbox. I mean, probably within the first year that they were available. So we've had that a long time, and we were actually using something as a precursor to. It was called X Drive, I think it was, something like that. We were using that, and that flamed out. And then we moved over to Dropbox when that became available. So, I mean, with everything paperless, that saves a lot of time and effort.
Yeah. What are the typical numbers like out in Detroit that you guys are doing in terms of purchase, renovation cost, and the rent that these properties are getting?
Well, unfortunately, they keep going up. The prices keep going up. But, this most recent property that we're looking to do right now in the city of Detroit, we'll be acquiring it for about 25. We figure it's going to need about 10 grand worth of work. So there'll be 35 into it, and selling it at a cap rate of 15%, we'll be able to sell it for 45.
Right. With a tenant in place?
With a tenant in place.
Okay. And then what's your acquisition strategy? I mean, how do you acquire a property like that? Is there a lot of inventory on the market and it's relatively simple to go in and buy a property?
Used to be, but not anymore. Just like the rest of the country is, there's a lot of inventory. The Wayne County, which is the county that Detroit is in, has about 17,000 properties that they'll be having at the next tax auction, actually in August, estimated. And that's down from highs. Wow. So 17,000 is a good number. But the problem with that is you have to understand the Detroit market specifically. Again, I'm talking Detroit City. The city was originally built in the early 50s for 1.8 million people. Right now, there's less than half of that. So there's a huge supply, and the demand is nowhere near the supply. And that's how a lot of out-of-state and out-of-country investors get screwed, because they're sold a property, the best-looking property on a blown-out neighborhood or block. And who wants to live there? It's the nicest house on the block, yeah, but the rest of the place is a war zone, and nobody wants to have their kids walking home from school past all these, board ups, burnouts, and blowouts. Mm-hmm. So you've really got to know how to sift through all these properties to find something that's going to be a good investment, because you can buy these other houses, and I mean, we've had people. I know one guy bought 9 houses at the auction from Germany a couple of years ago, and they weren't worth fixing up, and we couldn't get decent tenants, and he ended up walking away from all and letting go back to tax foreclosure. Oh, wow, huh? So we don't want that to happen, and so you've got to buy smartly in Detroit. Because it's easy to get taken advantage of.
So do you determine maybe what streets are streets you would want to buy on? And then if you had a list of 17,000 properties and you're looking to shortlist them, are you going to go by street typically?
Eventually. I mean, it's hard to say the streets, because the streets in Detroit, I mean, Detroit's one of the biggest geographical cities in the country.
Oh, it is, huh?
So a street can go for 5 miles.
Oh, okay.
And depending on the block, in the 4,000 range, it's really good, but you get up to the 6,000 range, it starts going downhill fast. So you can't necessarily do that. And a lot of people call us up and say, well, tell me where to invest. What zip code? Because Detroit's got about 11 zip codes, I think, or 7 zip codes. Never counted them, actually. But it's like you can't do it by zip code either. I can tell you this zip code is relatively better than that zip code. And then we get into neighborhoods. So you try to break it down from zip code to neighborhood. And that's pretty much where we would be looking. If we went through the 17,000 properties, we identify maybe 3 areas, neighborhoods. And then you do have to drive it, though, because unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, there's these great houses on ugly blocks, and you don't want to buy those. And Detroit's got to be block by block. We had some clients in from California 3 weeks ago. They paid us to do a tour of Detroit because they're thinking about investing. And we literally showed them, because nobody ever believes us. We said, okay, look at this block. And we're driving down this block. And they're like, this is great. How can we buy these? I said, wait a minute. Let's go around the corner. And literally we turned around the corner to the next block, and it was a war zone. And they're like, wait a minute, that's not possible. I'm like, oh yeah, this is Detroit. And it all comes down to how the neighbors banded together to protect themselves and to protect their properties. And some blocks did it and some blocks didn't. So it really boils down to block by block in Detroit. So when we boil it down to a neighborhood, we're going to be then driving the blocks and say, okay, 17,000 properties, you get it down to maybe like 200. And then you try to drive by as many of those as possible. Because it's really, you don't want to buy sight unseen.
Right. And are you guys looking to build your property management company, the units on that? Or are you focused on buying properties right now?
We're more focused on building the management, because if we feel, from a strategy point of view, the more properties we have under management, that means the more opportunities we're going to get to find other deals, whether it's, and those deals, then we can say we can't buy everything. So we'll take some of those and some of them we'll turn over to our clients. Mm-hmm. But it's, as far as trying to find fix and flips, it's all about being as many places as you can and seeing as much as you can so that you get all those opportunities.
Right. What else do we have
Well,
here?
I'm interested, Drew, to hear a little bit more about how you built your team out using freelancers, which is also something that Brian has done. I think some people might feel a little nervous about maybe going outside the country, finding people that are non-native English speakers to do this kind of work. Mm-hmm. Why did you decide to go that route, and how has it worked out for you?
Well, I read a book many, many years ago, which everybody's probably heard of, the 4-Hour Work Week. And that was promoted in that was, go out and hire VAs. And at the time, I believe that book was talking about India. And so even when I was in the mortgage business, I tried hiring people from India to do some basic stuff for me. And it was a challenge. The best tip, by the way, I got out of that book was to make sure you limit your exposure as far as money you're willing to spend, so you don't get a huge bill that you weren't expecting. And so that saved us a couple times, because we said, okay, hey, go do this task, and you got $200. And sometimes some of these guys would go and do nothing for the $200. Some of them would actually do something for the $200. So, and I can't remember how we actually got introduced to the Philippines. But I've got a pretty good ear for accents. But even I had a hard time understanding the Indian people we were dealing with when you actually talk to them on Skype or something like that. And the Philippines, it's a lot easier to understand most of them. You can actually get somewhere. And that was one of the first challenges we found, was trying to convey to somebody just via email really what you wanted them to do and how you wanted them to do it. You could probably do it via email and job descriptions, but you have to get into so much minutia. You're talking a 10-page document where you could cover the same thing in a 10 to 15-minute phone call. And it just didn't make sense to us. So we learned, from our point of view, it was better to talk to them, give them general layouts in writing, but then you have to talk them through it and even, walk them through a few phone calls or something, whatever you're having them to do.
Where are you sourcing the contractors, and how are you evaluating them?
We are sourcing them all right now in the Philippines. We don't have anybody. We've got a couple actually in different parts of the U.S., 3 people to be specific. The rest are all in the Philippines. As again, I said, we transitioned from India to the Philippines, and we initially went through a placement, a contract house, I guess you could call it, in the Philippines. And I won't name them, but they just gave us, one person lasted 2 hours with us because they just were dumb as a rock and literally had no motivation. Other people, we were burning through 7 people in like a 2-month period. And what we found was what they were doing was sending us everybody from what's called the BPO industry over there, the call centers, and who had no clue what to do, but they were cheap. So we got rid of them and we found our own website that was tailored to direct contact with the Philippine workers. We tried, what's the international job board right now?
We use Upwork to source freelancers.
Upworks, thank you. So we had tried using Upworks also, but Upworks to us, it was more time intensive. than the one we found that's specifically for the Philippines. I mean, we just tried Upworks again about 6 months ago and had the same result where we advertised at X amount of dollars, and we're getting people from all over the world that are exceeding that and saying, but I can do a better job, and I'm worth this. And we're like, that's not what we asked for. We asked for a cover letter stating exactly how their skills apply to the job. And if they don't send us a cover letter, then we just ignore them, because then they're probably spamming us.
Yeah. So what types of jobs and responsibilities are you giving these people?
You name it. We started out with accounting, because to us is this bill entry for the most part. We actually transitioned also though into hiring a CPA over there. That kind of acts, I guess you could say, as our CFO, more or less. They're doing all our reconciliations and cash flow analysis and stuff like that. We've got our marketing department over there. We've got our applications department. They process all the applications. We most recently, also our evictions. I mean, this is I'm going through how we transitioned. It didn't all happen at once. We slowly started sending departments over there as we could find people willing to do it or able to do it. And so our evictions and collections departments over there. What else do we have over there? I mean, we've got a lot of stuff over there. Our lease management went over there about a year ago. And then right now, what we're trying to do for the last 6 months, which is turning, and we knew it was going to be this way, but it's our biggest challenge to date, is trying to get maintenance over there. Our administration for maintenance. We still have people here on the ground handling a lot of it in the field, but processing all the documents and the tracking everything. And is this job done yet? Interacting with city for permits as necessary, all that kind of fun stuff. And the biggest challenge with that is they don't understand, American construction processes. They do it way differently in the Philippines.
What's the typical hourly rate that you're paying your people that are handling these admin duties?
I think our lowest right now is $3 an hour, and our highest is $6.
Oh, okay. And these are hourly contracts, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. And how do you train them? Is it basically you get on Skype, you walk them through it over the phone, you review what they did, and you just stay in communication like that?
We've pretty much written up procedures for them to follow, to varying degrees of, detail. But it all depends on the worker, because some of them get it right away and they'll read something and, okay, I got it. Some of them, and some of these people don't work out, unfortunately. They're like, they want to be spoon-fed too much, we call it. And they just want everything to tell me exactly what to do. And it's like, no, we want to give you the general parameters of what we expect you to do. And then, you apply it. And we've been using the example lately of a story problem. Hey, were you good at story problems in math when you were in school? Because those type of people learn to apply what they learn to unique situations. And if you're not good at story problems, then you're probably not going to work out for us.
Right. Story problems. So when you're testing people, is that a little bit of logic? Like
yes,
a logic problem? Maybe you could possibly share an example of the sort of test or this problem that you give out to people, maybe in the show notes or something, if you have something handy. I think somebody would really be interested in that, because I've found the same thing. It's really difficult to hire people that you can send off on their own and get the job done. And a lot of people stand around wondering exactly what you want them to do at every moment around every corner. And it makes it really difficult to grow the business when you're just micromanaging a lot of virtual employees.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because we have a lot of them complaining that we're micromanaging them. And it's like, well, you're asking us to micromanage you because you don't seem to grab the bull by the horns and run with the job, so to speak. And that's, by the way, another funny thing, which I'm sure you're familiar with too. It's you got to watch your American slang, because you'll say something and their culture is that they don't like to admit they don't understand something. It's a cultural thing. And so you'll be talking, you'll have a 15-minute conversation with them and you'll hang up thinking it's all solved. And then you find out later they understood 2 minutes of it. because the rest of it was slang, and they didn't bother they're going to ask your other people what's going on. And then it circles back to me. And then I got to sit down with them again and say, okay, what didn't you understand? Fortunately, I mean, we've had people, I think our longest tenured person's been with us 4 years now. And so they actually ask as a sounding board culturally for the rest of them. And we've got somebody for 3 years and 2 years, a bunch of people at 1 year. But like I said, our maintenance department, they're all relatively new. And that's been a challenge.
And so how do you guys communicate with each other as a group? Do you use Slack, or do you have some other project management?
Well, we use RingCentral. Yeah, we signed up. We've been using RingCentral for about 3 years, and slowly introducing all its bells and whistles. And so the most recent thing we did was we started using what they call Glip, which is very similar to Slack. So we set up Teams and Glip and stuff like that, so we can do text messaging amongst ourselves real quickly and efficiently and easily. Instead of Skype, RingCentral has what's called RingCentral Meetings. And the beauty of that is, and we did find a program to record our Skype, but it's built into RingCentral. So now when we have meetings and doing screen shares and everything like that, it's automatically recorded, and both parties have a copy of it so they can review it later, which saves a lot of time.
Cool, RingCentral. And then the project management, what was the software that you use to manage all 400 units? You said you're using Dropbox and
we're using Propertyware.
Propertyware, and that's a third party.
Yeah, that's a third party off the shelf. I mean, it's online now. You just subscribe to it, and they're in the cloud, which is why we went with them. I think like 9 years ago.
And how do you like that?
We upgraded to RingCentral. It's like anything else; nothing's perfect, but they've continued to improve, and we get approached by their competitors all the time about, hey, use us. And when we look at it, we're still like, nope, Propertyware is still offering us the best options. This year they've done, they fixed a lot of flaws in the program last year. And this year I shouldn't say flaws, but they had some things where it would crash and different things like that. So they fixed all of those pretty much last year. And this year they're rolling out new features like every quarter. And it's getting better and better. But you can automate the heck out of the system. You can customize it. We've got close to 2,000 custom fields we've put into it. I mean, we track little things like when is trash day? What is the furnace filter size? So that our team knows when they have to go change a furnace filter, it's in our system what size it is. And those are all custom fields. And then you can design, we probably got 200 custom reports. And you can automatically email those to an owner or to a team member, to a tenant. Well, not so much to a tenant. You could, but there's no reason to send a report to a tenant. But, we use it to remind our departments where they need to be working and focusing on.
Okay. What else do we have? Was there anything else that you wanted to promote on here? Did you want to maybe go through? Danny dropped out, but maybe we could just kind of wrap things up and we can go through. You could pitch whatever you're trying to promote currently, your website and that sort of thing. And any closing statements maybe. So let me just start.
Well, hold on. So I just want to be clear what you're okay with. I mean, 30 seconds,
whatever.
2 minutes.
Yeah. Just talk.
What do I got there?
As much as you want. Okay. So,
okay.
Hold on, let me see where we are. Okay. Awesome, Drew. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, or where could people find out more about you and your company?
Well, you can go to royalroseproperties.com. That's Royal, ROYAL, Rose like the flower, and then properties.com. Highly recommend people follow our blog. You can sign up for our blog there. We also are, we were picked up, I think, close to 3 years ago by biggerpockets.com. I think they have over 1 million people now on their site. And we write a blog for them also every week. So we publish blogs
awesome.
every week.
On Bigger Pockets, they can find you?
Yeah. Yep, Bigger Pockets and also our website. And they're two different blogs, by the way. We had to sign an agreement with Bigger Pockets that we wouldn't duplicate materials.
Oh, awesome.
So we talk about, we do a lot of things for do-it-yourself landlords about how to get things done and what we do, and lease clauses and processes and what to watch out for from tenants. We actually even write a monthly blog for tenants, which is on our website. And then we try to tell tenants how to be a better tenant, how to work with your landlord and have a good relationship. So we do things like that. And we also talk about the city of Detroit and Metro Detroit and what's going on and how to invest here, what to be careful of.
Okay, that's great. We're going to have, we'll add that to the show notes for the podcast. And we really appreciate you coming by today, Drew.
That's all the time we have for this edition of the show. We'll be back in 1 week. And in the meantime, be sure to rate and review the podcasts at Apple Podcasts. We'll see you soon.